We've all been there. You've been anxiously waiting for those first signs of life, and finally, there they are, those beautiful little green shoots. Now, just a few days later, instead of strong, healthy starts, you're looking at thin, pale, spindly stems reaching desperately for the light, looking like they're about to collapse. It's frustrating, isn't it? Today, I'm going to reveal my top secret for why my seedlings never get leggy. This isn't about magic or expensive chemicals. It's just one single, critically important step you need to take within the very first hours of germination. Stick around until the end of this video, and you'll see how one simple move builds the foundation for a powerful root system and a thick, sturdy stem that lasts the lifetime of the plant. This method will change the way you grow forever. But before we get to the secret, let's quickly talk about why seedlings get leggy in the first place. It all comes down to a process called etiolation. In simple terms, when a plant doesn't get enough light, it thinks it's still buried deep underground. Its genetic programming is screaming, "Grow up as fast as you can to find the sun." And heat only makes it worse. Our homes are usually quite warm, which acts as a catalyst for this rapid, weak growth. The result is a combination of two factors: not enough light and too much heat. That is the perfect recipe for disaster, leading to weak, stretched-out seedlings. Most gardeners try to fix the damage after the fact by adding more soil or using growth regulators. But those are just attempts to save a plant that's already off to a bad start. Our method is different. It stops the problem before it even begins, right at the most vulnerable and important moment of the plant's life. So let's pinpoint that critical moment X. The point of no return, where waiting any longer is not an option. It's not the day you sow your seeds, nor is it the appearance of the very first sprout. The truly vital window of opportunity opens during mass emergence. What does that look like? Imagine looking at your seed tray and seeing that 50 to 70% of your seeds have broken through the soil and formed their little loops. This is the moment when the majority of your plants are transitioning into a new phase of life, and it's exactly when you must step in. Why not sooner? Because the seeds that haven't sprouted yet might fail to germinate if the environment becomes too harsh too early. And why not later? Because in just 12 to 24 hours in a warm, dim environment, the stems will stretch and weaken irreversibly. This is why you should check your trays daily, ideally twice a day. The moment you see mass emergence, drop everything. Your intervention is needed right here, right now. This is the single most critical stage of the entire growing process. In the battle for strong, stocky seedlings, our greatest enemy is actually comfort. It's that cozy, steady warmth we try so hard to provide, thinking we're helping. A room kept at a constant 24 degrees is perfect for starting seeds, but for a fresh sprout, it's a total death trap. In nature, the moment a seed breaks through the soil, it hits a reality check. The nights are cold and the days are unpredictable. This is what hardens the plant. But in a warm apartment, that paradise environment, especially when combined with weak light, sends a clear, mistaken signal. I'm still buried. I need to reach the surface now. The plant stops investing in its roots and pours every ounce of energy into stretching its stem. Our job is to hack this ancient biological script. We have to artificially create conditions that mimic the harsh reality of early spring. We need to make these seedlings believe they've finally arrived, so they stop that frantic vertical race and start building a solid, sturdy foundation. It's time to reveal my secret. The one thing I do that changes everything is giving my seedlings immediate, radical stress. As soon as I see the majority of them sprouting, I put them through what I call Spartan training. Forget about coddling them at this stage. The plants need a shock to the system. This stress consists of two key factors that must be applied simultaneously: a sharp drop in temperature and a dramatic increase in light intensity and duration. It's not one or the other. It has to be both. If you keep them cool but in the dark, they'll keep stretching. If you give them plenty of light but keep them warm, they'll still grow leggy. Only the synergy of cold and light can completely stop that unwanted stretching. This forces the plant to redirect its energy exactly where it belongs, toward thickening the stem and, most importantly, building a massive root system. This isn't just my personal trick. It's a fundamental law of agronomy that far too many people ignore when growing at home. Let's talk numbers. What exactly do we mean by a sharp temperature drop? First, let's look at the daytime routine. If your seeds germinated at a cozy 25 degrees Celsius, then as soon as those first little loops emerge from the soil, you need to dial the temperature back to between 15 and 18 degrees. Yes, that is actually quite chilly. So how do you manage that in a typical apartment? The ideal spot would be a glassed-in, unheated balcony. If you don't have one, find the coldest windowsill in your home. Perhaps in a room where you can leave the window slightly cracked for ventilation. You can even use some plastic sheeting to wall off the windowsill from the warm air of the room, creating its own cool microclimate. Why do we need this cold? Think of it as a biochemical break. At lower temperatures, the plant's growth processes slow down. The cells stop dividing so rapidly, and more importantly, they stop stretching out. The plant receives a clear signal. There's no rush. Save your energy and adapt. Instead of mindlessly shooting upwards, it starts thickening its stem and preparing for its first true leaves. This is the absolute foundation of healthy growth. While keeping things cool during the day is important, the nighttime temperature is absolutely critical. It's during the dark hours that plants do most of their stretching. If you keep your seedlings warm overnight, all your daytime efforts could go to waste. You'll wake up to find they've grown tall and thin anyway. Our goal is to make the night even cooler than the day. For most crops, like tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and cabbage, the sweet spot is between 12 and 14 degrees Celsius. This mimics the natural temperature swings of a spring night. This nighttime chill is the most powerful way to stop plants from getting leggy. It forces the plant to stop stretching and focus on building strength. Achieving this is usually easy on a balcony, or by opening a window slightly near your plants at night. Just be careful not to let the temperature drop below 10 degrees, as that can stress the roots. Sticking to this routine for just 3 to 5 nights is the real secret to success. The second front in our battle against leggy seedlings is light, and here we need to take a radical approach. For the first 3 to 4 days after they sprout, I provide round-the-clock supplemental lighting. That's 24 hours a day, non-stop. Why do this? Because brand new seedlings don't have a full photosynthetic system yet. They don't even have true leaves. At this stage, their growth is entirely governed by hormones, and light is the master switch. Constant bright light sends a clear signal to the plant. You've reached the surface. There's plenty of light here, so there's no need to stretch. This forces the plant to pivot, directing all its energy downward into the roots and toward developing those first true leaves. By eliminating the dark period, we prevent the growth hormones responsible for stretching from ever kicking in. When you combine this with cooler temperatures, you create the perfect conditions for a short, stocky seedling. A lot of people worry this might be too much for the plant, but for this brief initial window, it's the most effective strategy there is. Think of it as boot camp for your seedlings. It's intense, but it builds a strong foundation. What kind of light do you actually need at this stage? Many gardeners go to extremes. Some think a simple desk lamp is enough, while others invest in expensive, full-spectrum grow lights. As is often the case, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. During those first 3 to 5 days, the specific light spectrum isn't nearly as important as its intensity and placement. Your main goal is to provide as much light as possible. A standard LED bulb or a floodlight with a cool white color temperature between 6000 and 6500 Kelvin works perfectly. Aim for a power output of at least 30 to 40 watts per square meter of seedlings. But the most critical factor is the distance. The lamp needs to be positioned very low, just 5 to 7 centimeters above the tops of your seedlings. This ensures they get the maximum light intensity possible. As the plants grow, simply raise the light to maintain that gap. To make the setup even more efficient, use foil reflectors around the sides of your trays to keep the light focused on the plants instead of letting it scatter around the room. Don't skimp on lighting during these first few days. It is an investment that will pay off tremendously in the long run. Now let's talk practicalities. Where exactly can you find this kind of Spartan environment in a standard city apartment? Your best bet is a glass-enclosed balcony or loggia, where springtime temperatures are usually right in that sweet spot. It's the perfect environment. If you don't have a balcony, go for your coldest windowsill, typically the one facing north. To make it even more effective, you can block the windowsill off from the rest of the room with a heavy plastic sheet. This creates a sort of mini greenhouse, making it much easier to regulate the temperature just by cracking the window. Some people even keep their seedling trays in a cool pantry or a basement, relying entirely on artificial lighting. But here is a crucial point. Never place your containers directly on a cold concrete floor or an icy windowsill. Roots really don't handle the cold well. Instead, slide a wooden board, a piece of foam, or even some folded newspaper underneath them. Remember, our goal is to keep the air around the stems cool, not to freeze the root system. How long should you keep your seedlings in this boot camp? Not long at all. Usually 3 to 5 days is the limit. Stay any longer, and these harsh conditions will start to do more harm than good, actually stunting their growth. So, how can you tell when it's time to bring them back to a more comfortable life? Just let the plants be your guide. In just a few short days, they should transform completely. Those tiny curved hooks will straighten out, and the seed leaves will unfurl, turning a deep, healthy green. The stems will grow short and sturdy, often taking on a purple hue, a clear sign of a strong, well-hardened plant. Once the seed leaves have fully opened, and you see the very first tiny hint of a true leaf emerging, that's it. Mission accomplished. The foundation is set. Now you can gradually, over the next day or two, transition them back to their normal routine. It's a short, intense burst of stress, but it's exactly what defines the entire future of your plants. Let's address the biggest fear people have with this method. But they'll freeze. They're just tiny, delicate little sprouts. It's a common misconception, and it comes from a good place, our own human empathy. We project our sense of comfort onto our plants. No, for most of the crops we grow, this kind of chill isn't just safe. It's essential. Tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, cabbage, and even petunias, they all handle temperatures as low as 10 to 12 degrees perfectly well. In fact, that chill is exactly what triggers their natural genetic programming. It signals to the plant that spring has actually arrived, and it's time to start gearing up for the real world. The only exceptions are the true heat lovers, like cucumbers and melons. For those, don't be quite as drastic. Keep them around 18 to 20 degrees. But even they still need that balance of cooling and bright light. So don't feel sorry for them. In this case, true care isn't about keeping them warm, it's about providing the right kind of stress at exactly the right time. So, what's actually happening inside the plant at a cellular level during this period? It all comes down to the balance of hormones. The primary hormone responsible for cell elongation and upward growth is auxin. It's produced in the plant's growth tip, and in warm, dark conditions, it's generated in massive amounts, forcing the stem cells to stretch. However, when we move those seedlings into bright light and cooler temperatures, auxin production drops sharply. Light, especially in the blue spectrum, actually breaks it down, while the cold slows its movement through the stem. At the same time, These Spartan conditions stimulate the production of other hormones called cytokinins. Think of cytokinins as the natural opposites of auxins. Instead of stretching cells, they trigger cell division and, most importantly, root development. In effect, we aren't just slowing down vertical growth, we are fundamentally shifting the plant's biochemistry to prioritize width and depth. The plant stops focusing on its top and starts building its foundation. This hormonal shift, established in those first few days, sets the stage for the long term, ensuring the entire plant develops into a balanced and healthy organism. What happens if you're too late? You missed the window, went away for the weekend, and came back to find your seed trays filled not with sturdy sprouts, but with long, pale, spindly threads collapsing onto the soil. Can this be fixed? Honestly, not completely. That stretched-out stem will never shorten or thicken up. The foundation is already flawed. You can try some first aid to salvage the situation. The most common trick is to carefully add more soil, mounding it right up to the seed leaves. This gives the stem some support and encourages extra roots to grow along the buried part. You could also use growth regulators to chemically slow things down. But keep in mind, these are just band-aids. A plant that gets leggy right at the start will always be weaker than one that grew correctly from day one. It will have a poorer root system, it'll be more prone to diseases like damping off, and ultimately it won't give you the harvest you're hoping for. When it comes to seedlings, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. To give you a clear picture of the difference, imagine 2 trays of tomato seedlings sown on the exact same day. We leave one tray on a warm windowsill inside the house. The other goes straight to a cool balcony under a 24-hour grow light as soon as the first sprouts appear. Just 1 week later, the contrast is incredible. In the first tray, you'll see tall, spindly, pale green plants with long gaps between the leaves. They'll be stretching desperately toward the window, already starting to lean or fall over. In the second tray, the seedlings are 2, or even 3 times shorter. But look at the quality. They are stocky and strong, with thick, sturdy stems that have a healthy purple tint. Their seed leaves are large and dark green, with a clear cluster of true leaves already emerging. If you carefully pull one plant from each tray, the difference becomes even more obvious. The leggy seedling has only one long, thin taproot. But our Spartan plant has already grown a dense system of vibrant white feeder roots. I think it's pretty clear which of these 2 will give you the better harvest. One crucial thing you can't ignore during this cool phase is watering. There's a golden rule here. It's much better to underwater than to overwater. When it's chilly, moisture evaporates very slowly. Plus, those tiny root systems barely drink anything yet. If you keep watering your sprouts like you would in the heat, you'll end up with a stagnant swamp. Cold, wet soil is a recipe for disaster, specifically the dreaded damping off. This fungal disease attacks the base of the stem, turning it black and shriveled until the plant simply collapses. Once that happens, there's no saving it. That's why, during the first 3 to 5 days of this stress period, I usually don't water at all, provided the soil was moist enough when I sowed the seeds. If the surface looks bone dry, I'll add just a few drops with a pipette or a syringe right at the base of the stem. The soil should feel barely damp, almost dry to the touch. Think of it as a bit of Spartan training for your plants. Let's take a closer look at what's happening beneath the surface, because that's where the real magic happens. When a young seedling faces tough conditions above ground, like cool temperatures and intense light, it instinctively shifts its focus. Instead of wasting the seed's precious energy on stretching its stem, the plant redirects its resources toward staying grounded. It prioritizes the root system. In cooler soil, this process isn't fast, but it is high quality. You're not just getting one long taproot, you're building a dense, fibrous network, packed with lateral roots and tiny root hairs. This thick beard of roots will eventually become the powerful pump that supplies the mature plant with all the water and nutrients it needs. Seedlings with a robust root system handle transplanting much better and settle into the soil much faster. They're also naturally more resistant to drought and disease. And keep in mind, this vital foundation is built during those very first days after germination. So, after 3 to 5 days of boot camp, the hard part is over. Our seedlings have toughened up and are ready to transition to a normal routine. But what exactly should that look like? First, don't put them back into the heat. We want to create the perfect environment for photosynthesis and steady, balanced growth. The ideal daytime temperature is now between 20 and 22 degrees Celsius. At night, keep it cooler, around 16 to 18 degrees. Maintaining this day-to-night temperature drop is essential throughout the entire growing stage. It's the best way to prevent your plants from getting leggy later on. We're also moving away from 24-hour lighting. Plants need a period of darkness for their natural biological processes to work properly. From now on, 12 to 14 hours of light a day is plenty for most crops. As for watering, you can start doing it more regularly, but keep it moderate. Always let the top layer of soil dry out before watering again. Under these conditions, your hardened seedlings will continue to grow strong, sturdy, and healthy. Are there any specific cultural nuances to consider? Generally speaking, this method is universal, but a few small tweaks can make a big difference. For instance, with cucurbits, like cucumbers, squash, and melons, the temperature shock should be much gentler. Instead of dropping it to 15 degrees, aim for 18 to 20. They're far more heat-loving. Peppers and eggplants, on the other hand, crave light, so for them, lighting intensity is the priority. Cabbage is the opposite. It's incredibly cold-hardy and will happily thrive at 10 to 12 degrees. Tomatoes are perhaps the most responsive of all. They show the effects of this technique almost instantly, quickly becoming stocky and developing that distinct purple tint. This method also works perfectly for flowers like petunias or lobelia. Their tiny seedlings are prone to getting leggy, so this approach gives them a massive head start. Ultimately, the goal is to understand the core principle and adapt it to your specific plants by keeping a close eye on how they react. Even if you know the right technique, it's easy to slip up during execution. Let's look at the 5 most common mistakes. Mistake number 1, moving the tray to the cold too early. If you don't wait for full germination, some of those seeds will never sprout. Mistake number 2, keeping things cool but forgetting about bright light. In the dark, seedlings will stretch and become leggy even faster than they do in the heat. Mistake number 3, skipping the nighttime temperature drop. This cuts the effectiveness of the whole process in half. Mistake number 4, placing the container directly on a freezing surface like a concrete balcony floor. This chills the roots and invites disease. Always use an insulating stand or mat. And mistake number 5, overwatering while it's cold. This is a guaranteed recipe for damping off. Keep these essentials in mind. Cool temperatures, bright 24-hour light, minimal watering, root insulation, and a duration of 3 to 5 days. Follow these 5 rules, and you'll avoid the pitfalls and ensure healthy growth. So, what's the long-term payoff for putting in all that effort during those first few days? Honestly, it's massive. First of all, you get healthy, sturdy seedlings that are a joy to work with. They don't flop over, and you won't need to constantly add extra soil or stake them up. Second, these plants develop a robust root system, which means they'll settle in perfectly after transplanting. They hit the ground running and start growing much faster. Third, plants that are toughened up from the very beginning have much stronger immunity. They are less prone to fungal diseases and can handle erratic weather, like sudden cold snaps or heat waves, far better. But most importantly, a plant that grows steadily from day one without the stress of getting leggy naturally produces more flower clusters and has a much higher yield potential. In short, those few days of careful monitoring at the start directly impact how many tomatoes or peppers you'll harvest at the end of the season. It truly is the most important investment of your time and attention. Let's do a quick recap of our plan to make sure everything is clear. Step 1. Sow your seeds and keep them warm, around 25 degrees, until most of them have sprouted. Step 2. As soon as you see that over half of the seeds have emerged, move the container to a cool spot immediately. Step 3. At the same time, set up bright 24-hour lighting. Position the lamp low, just 5 to 7 centimeters above the plants. Step 4. Keep conditions tough for the next 3 to 5 days. We're looking for 15 to 18 degrees during the day and 12 to 14 at night. Watering should be kept to an absolute minimum or skipped entirely. Step 5. Once the seed leaves have fully unfurled, gradually return the seedlings to normal conditions, 20 to 22 degrees during the day, 16 to 18 at night, and a 12 to 14-hour light cycle. And that's it. 5 simple steps to perfect seedlings. Try this once and you'll never go back to your old way of doing things. So, what's the big takeaway? Believe it or not, the biggest enemy of your young seedlings is actually your own comfort. A warm room and dim lighting are a deadly combination for a brand new plant. The secret to growing thick, sturdy stems isn't found in fertilizers or growth stimulants. It's all about tough love during the first 3 to 5 days of their life. Simply moving your starts to a cool, bright spot early on sets the stage for a record-breaking harvest later. Remember, don't baby your plants once they sprout. They don't need pity, they need proper direction. You want to create an environment where stretching upward is a waste of energy, but building a strong root system is a top priority. Thanks for watching. If you found this tip helpful, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more gardening secrets. Now, I have a question for you. How do you deal with leggy seedlings? Have you run into this problem before? Let's discuss it in the comments below.